CEO wore no ring at the gala. The single dad asked one question that silenced all. They snickered the moment he walked in. Portia Langford leaned toward her co-chair, Derek Voss, and whispered, loud enough for 3 tables to hear, "Someone let the help attend the gala." The Meridian Club's grand terrace had never seen a night like this one. Or at least, Portia Langford liked to believe that every event she chaired was the finest gathering in the city's social calendar. Crystal flutes, Italian marble underfoot, a string quartet positioned near the east window, playing something that cost more per hour than most people earned in a week. And standing at the entrance with a paper parking stub still in his jacket pocket and a jacket that had been dry cleaned, not tailored, was Nathan Cole. He was 37. He had $200 in his checking account. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine because his daughter Maya had spent 20 minutes on them that morning, tongue between her teeth, deeply serious about the task. He held his gala invitation, a physical card, cream-colored, gold embossed, with both hands, the way a person holds something they earned. Portia Langford watched him approach the check-in table and turned back to Derek Voss with a smile that didn't require explanation. Derek smirked. Beside them, their mutual friend Sandra Creel pressed her lips together to suppress a laugh. The 3 of them had co-chaired the Meridian Foundation Gala for 6 consecutive years. They'd built the guest list. They knew who mattered. Nathan Cole, clearly, did not matter. What Portia didn't know was that Nathan Cole had co-founded a software infrastructure company that quietly powered the payment systems for 4 of the country's largest hospital networks. What Derek Voss didn't know was that the venture capital firm he'd been courting for 8 months had already turned him down, and the man in the dry-cleaned jacket was on that firm's advisory board. And what none of them knew, not Portia, not Derek, not Sandra, not any of the 200 guests who glanced at Nathan and looked away, was that by the end of the evening, Portia Langford would be standing in front of 200 people with no answer to the one question a single dad had dared to ask. 8 hours earlier, Nathan Cole had been on the kitchen floor, not figuratively, literally. He'd sat down beside his daughter Maya after she dropped her cereal bowl, and the 2 of them had cleaned up the mess together, him with the mop, her with the paper towels, while she told him, at length, about a dream she'd had involving a purple horse who could speak French, but chose not to because it was too obvious. Too obvious, Nathan repeated, wringing out the mop. That's what he said. He said, I could speak French, but everyone would expect that from a purple horse. So he spoke Mandarin instead. The horse spoke Mandarin, fluently, with a regional accent. Maya tossed her paper towels in the bin. I thought it was very mature of him. Nathan looked at his daughter, 8 years old, wearing mismatched socks, with her mother's eyes and his stubborn chin, and felt the particular warmth that had no name, but that parents know precisely. The one that moves through your chest like something slow and permanent. It was very mature, he agreed. The apartment was a 2-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building that had seen better decades, but maintained its dignity. Nathan had painted Maya's room yellow the week they moved in. She'd helped badly, and the ceiling still had 2 streaks of sunshine yellow near the light fixture that he'd never fully managed to cover. He'd stopped trying. She called them her sunbeams, and that was that. He made her breakfast, eggs, not cereal, since the cereal situation had already been handled, and packed her lunch while she got dressed. The lunch: turkey sandwich on whole wheat, apple slices, a small bag of pretzels. The note he tucked inside the zipper pocket of her lunchbox said, "You are my favorite person on the planet. Don't tell the purple horse." She'd find it at noon and come home beaming. He knew, because she always did. The gala invitation was on the kitchen counter. Nathan had been invited as a registered donor. He'd contributed $1,500 to the Meridian Foundation's STEM education program, the maximum he could manage this year. He'd borrowed his neighbor Dan's tie. He'd polished his shoes. He'd been dreading it since the invitation arrived, because events like this were not built for people like him, and he knew it. But the STEM program had given Maya's school 3 new science kits and a lab renovation, and he believed in showing up for the things you believed in. He checked the clock. The babysitter would arrive at 6. He had time. He went to his laptop, opened his email, skimmed 14 messages from his software clients, 2 from his accountant, and 1 from the Meridian Foundation marked Donor Orientation Materials, which, when he opened it, turned out to be a seating chart and a reminder not to approach board-level patrons without introduction. He read that line twice, closed the laptop, got his jacket. His table was number 14, tucked in the back left quadrant of the terrace near the service corridor. Nathan found it with help from a young event volunteer who seemed apologetic about the location in a way she was clearly too professional to say out loud. He sat, introduced himself to the couple already seated. Tom and Bev Aldrich, retired teachers who donated to the Foundation's literacy program for 11 years. Tom shook his hand like a man who meant it. Bev asked if he'd eaten, because the hors d'oeuvres were circulating near the front and wouldn't reach the back tables for another half hour. She said this without bitterness, which Nathan found more depressing than the fact itself. "I ate before I came," he said. "Smart," said Tom. They talked easily about the Foundation programs, about the city's education gaps, about Tom's 41 years in the classroom, and what had changed and what hadn't. Nathan listened more than he spoke. He was good at that. His late wife Claire had called it one of his best qualities, and also his most frustrating one. "You listen so well," she'd said once, "that people forget to ask you anything back." He'd laughed, said, "Maybe I prefer it that way." She'd looked at him in that particular way of hers and said, "No, you don't." She'd been right. She usually was. He pushed the thought away, reached for his water glass. That was when he noticed the woman across the terrace. She was standing near the main sponsor table, alone for a moment in a way that looked deliberate, like someone who had learned to exist in solitude, even in crowded rooms. Dark blazer, no jewelry except small gold earrings, no ring. She was speaking to no one, but watching everyone. The room, the exits, the service staff, the speaker setup, cataloging, the way people catalog when they're responsible for something they care about going correctly. Then Portia Langford appeared at her elbow and said something, and the woman's expression shifted, closed slightly, politely, the way a door doesn't quite shut, but clearly isn't open. Nathan watched, said nothing. Bev Aldrich appeared beside him with a small plate of hors d'oeuvres she'd intercepted from a passing tray. "Got you some?" she said. "The salmon ones are good." "Thank you, Bev." He turned his attention back to the table. But he kept the woman in the corner of his awareness, the way you keep a sound you're not sure about. What he didn't know yet, what the seating chart hadn't told him, was that her name was Elena Vasquez. That she was the founder and CEO of a medical technology company whose pediatric imaging software had been used in 43 countries. That she had donated $600,000 to the Meridian Foundation over the past 4 years, quietly and without conditions. And that the reason she wore no ring was that she'd stopped wearing one 8 months ago, the day the divorce was finalized, and hadn't decided yet what she believed about that. She'd find out something that evening she hadn't expected. They all would. The program began at 8:15. A foundation board member named William Kerr delivered the opening remarks. Earnest, overlong, statistic-heavy in the way of someone who trusts data to do the work of feeling. The string quartet took a break. Waitstaff appeared with the first course. The room shifted into its dinner configuration. Smaller conversations, territorial positioning, the social calculus of who was worth talking to. Nathan ate his salmon in silence and listened to Tom Aldrich describe the year he'd taught 4 grade levels simultaneously in a rural school with one other teacher and a leaking roof. He was mid-sentence, Tom was, when Portia Langford arrived at table 14. She didn't sit. She stood at the edge of the table with the particular posture of someone who considers standing over people a form of communication. She was in a silver gown, floor length, clearly designed to be seen across a room. She looked at Nathan's jacket, at his borrowed tie, at his shoes, which were, to her credit, impeccable. "I don't think we've been introduced," she said. Her tone was the social equivalent of a yellow caution sign, technically polite, actually a warning. "Nathan Cole," he said. He didn't stand. He extended his hand. She took it briefly. "Portia Langford, Foundation co-chair." She smiled. "I like to meet all our donors personally. It's important to know who's in the room." She paused. "What is it you do, Nathan?" "Software," he said. "Oh." The single syllable managed to convey, "Small company, probably an app, not interesting." "Wonderful. And you donated to the STEM program?" "I did. My daughter's school is part of the program." "Sweet." She said it the way people say sweet when they mean small. "We appreciate every level of support. That's what makes this community so." She gestured broadly, as if the gesture could complete the sentence. "Inclusive." Nathan looked at her. "What's the Foundation's plan for the technology equity gap in the district's Title I schools?" The smile didn't disappear. It simply stopped, reaching her eyes. "We have a number of programs. Specifically the device-to-student ratio," Nathan said. Last year's report showed a 1-to-4 ratio in 6 of the district's lowest-income schools. The STEM kits are great, but they're not functional without consistent device access. Has the board addressed that? Tom Aldrich had set down his fork. Bev was very still. Portia's smile was working hard now. "That's a complex issue, resource allocation across a district of this size. There's a federal matching grant program open until March 15th, Nathan said. Technology equity, underserved districts. The Foundation's donor base would qualify for the match. Has anyone looked at the application?" Portia blinked once. "I'd have to ask our program director," she said. "I'd encourage it," Nathan said. He picked up his fork. "It was nice to meet you, Portia." She walked away. Tom Aldrich picked up his fork too, slowly. "Software," he said. "Software," Nathan confirmed. Tom speared a piece of salmon. "You know a lot about federal grant programs for a software person?" Nathan almost smiled. "I sat on a school board for 3 years." "Of course you did," Bev said, and helped herself to more bread. What Nathan hadn't planned, what no one had, was what happened at the sponsor recognition segment. Foundation Director Marcus Webb took the podium at 9 o'clock for the donor acknowledgement portion of the evening. The room settled. People put down their glasses. Names were read, the largest donors acknowledged first, the room applauding dutifully down the tiers. Webb reached a name on his list and paused. Not because he'd lost his place, but because the recognition he was about to make had been requested specifically by the donor to be paired with an explanation. He'd thought it unusual at the time. Now, reading the note in the folder again, He thought he understood it. I want to recognize a donor who has asked for this acknowledgement to go not to her personally, but to the program she funded, Webb said. The Meridian Foundation's Pediatric STEM Mentorship Initiative, which pairs working engineers and scientists with students in Title I schools, exists because of a $600,000 founding gift given 4 years ago by Elena Vasquez, founder and CEO of Vasquez MedTech. The room applauded. At the far end of the terrace, near the sponsor table, Elena Vasquez nodded once. Didn't stand, didn't wave. Just nodded, as if the applause was for the program, which she intended it to be. Portia Langford's champagne glass paused halfway to her mouth. Derek Voss looked at his phone, found the name, read it, read the company name below it, put the phone face down on the table. Sandra Creel leaned toward Portia and whispered something. Portia did not respond. Webb continued. And I want to note that Ms. Vasquez has this year added an additional $200,000 to expand the mentorship program into 6 new schools, including, specifically, 6 Title I schools where the device-to-student ratio is below 1:3. This expansion will be the largest single-school technology access initiative in the Foundation's history. The room applauded again, louder. Portia Langford set her glass down. At table 14, Tom Aldrich said quietly, Nathan said nothing. He was looking at Elena Vasquez, who had, in the 2 seconds after Webb finished speaking, turned and found his table with her eyes. Found him specifically. He wasn't sure how. He hadn't done anything to be findable. She held his gaze for 1 beat, then 2. Then she turned back to the room. He didn't plan to speak to her. He wasn't the type to engineer conversations. He believed in things happening when they were supposed to happen and not forcing them when they weren't. But after the program ended and the room shifted into its closing social hour, and Nathan had said good night to Tom and Bev and declined 3 offers to meet various Foundation board members through Portia's now visibly strained networking circuit, he found himself at the edge of the terrace, where the lights dimmed slightly, and the string quartet had resumed playing something quieter. Elena Vasquez was there, standing at the railing, looking out at the city. He stopped a few feet away, not to intrude. Just because the railing was there and the night air was cooler than the room. She spoke first, without looking at him. You asked Portia Langford about the Title I technology gap. I did, he said. She came to find me afterward. Elena turned slightly. Asked if I knew you. What did you tell her? That I didn't. She seemed surprised that I knew what a device-to-student ratio was. A small pause. What's your connection to Title I schools? My daughter goes to one, he said. She was quiet for a moment. And you donated to the Foundation anyway, she said, knowing the gaps. Because the STEM program is real. Even imperfect things can be real. He looked out at the city. What's yours? She looked at him. Your connection, he said, to the Foundation. For a moment, just a moment, something shifted in her expression. The professional composure held, but behind it, something moved, the way a door moves in a breeze, even when it looks closed. My daughter was diagnosed with a cardiac condition when she was 4, she said. The imaging software that identified it was still in development. The hospital didn't have the latest version. It took 2 more months to diagnose what a newer system would have caught in 1 scan. She paused. She's fine. She's 12 now. She plays soccer and argues with me constantly about her curfew. But you built the newer system, he said. It wasn't a question. I already had the company, Elena said, but that year changed what we built toward. She looked at him directly now. You didn't recognize my name earlier. When Webb read it, should I have? Most people do. He considered this. I was thinking about the grant program, the federal one for the device ratio. I've been trying to figure out who to contact at the foundation to push the application. Elena Vasquez looked at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time all evening, she smiled. Not the professional smile. The other one. The one that happened without planning. I'm on the foundation's technology committee, she said. Of course you are, he said. And that was when he asked the question that silenced everything. Not dramatically, not loudly, not in front of a crowd. Just the two of them at the railing with the city below them and the quartet playing something that had no urgency in it at all. He said, "Can I take you to coffee? To talk about the grant?" She looked at him, looked at his jacket, his borrowed tie, his impeccable shoes. Looked at the way he held his gala invitation, still folded in his jacket pocket, the edges visible. "To talk about the grant," she repeated. "And maybe other things," he said. "If the grant conversation goes well." A beat. "Thursday," she said. "I have a meeting until 11. 11:30, he said. "Good." She turned back to the room. He stayed at the railing a moment longer. Somewhere behind them, Portia Langford was explaining to Derek Voss how she'd always planned to follow up with Elena Vasquez more intentionally and had been meaning to push the Title I initiative for months. Derek was nodding the way people nod when they're listening, but thinking. Neither of them looked toward the railing. By Thursday morning, 3 things had already happened. The first, Portia Langford had called the Meridian Foundation's program director first thing Monday and asked to be briefed on the federal technology equity grant. The program director, who had been aware of the grant for 6 weeks and had submitted a preliminary inquiry without telling Portia because the co-chairs seemed focused on higher-profile initiatives, confirmed the application window and walked her through the requirements. Portia had sat very still through this conversation. Then she'd thanked the director and asked to be included in all future program communications going forward. The director had said yes and made a note. The second, Derek Voss had contacted the venture capital firm he'd been pursuing, asked for a follow-up meeting, and been informed that their advisory board had recently noted some inconsistencies in the partnership's projected return model that would require additional review. Derek had said, of course, absolutely. He understood. Then he'd looked up Nathan Cole's name on the firm's public advisory board roster and found it near the top. He'd sat with that for a while. The third, Sandra Creel had posted a photo from the gala on her social accounts with a caption about an extraordinary evening supporting an extraordinary cause. The same caption she used every year, and received, for the first time, a comment from the Meridian Foundation's official account tagging Elena Vasquez's company and the Title I expansion program. The comment got 412 likes in 24 hours. Sandra's caption got 11. Some recalibrations happen slowly. Some happen in the space between one evening and the next. Nathan got to the coffee shop at 11:25. He dropped Maya at school, made his client calls, changed out of his work clothes, and back into them twice because he couldn't decide if it mattered, and finally decided it didn't. He ordered 2 coffees, one black, one with oat milk, because she'd mentioned it the night she'd ordered one at the Gala bar, and he'd filed it without thinking about why. Elena arrived at 11:31. Dark coat, no jewelry except the small gold earrings. No ring. She saw the oat milk coffee before she'd taken off her coat. Stopped. "How did you?" She looked up. "You ordered one Saturday," he said. "I noticed." She looked at him for a moment. Something in her expression moved again, that door in a breeze quality that he found he'd been thinking about since Saturday night. She sat down. "The grant application," she said. "The grant application," he agreed. She pulled out her laptop. He pulled out a folder, actual paper, printed, because he thought better on paper, with the federal program requirements highlighted in 3 different colors, each color corresponding to a different category of eligibility. She looked at the folder, at the color coding, at him. "My daughter does this," she said. "Color codes everything. She's 12. "Mine's 8, he said. "She color codes too." He paused. "Maya." "Sophia," she said. They looked at each other. The coffee was hot. The morning light through the window was the kind that makes everything look like it's being reconsidered. Outside, the city moved the way cities move, without caring, without pausing, without knowing what was beginning inside a coffee shop at a table by the window where a single dad and a CEO had 2 laptops, 1 paper folder, and not enough time. "Okay," Elena said. She opened the laptop. "Walk me through the eligibility criteria." "Column 1, he said, and turned the folder toward her. "Green." She read. He watched her read, the way her eyes moved, quick and complete, the way she clicked her pen against her thumb when she was thinking. "This is thorough," she said, without looking up. "I had time," he said. "Maya goes to bed at 8:30. She smiled at the laptop screen. Didn't say anything. But she didn't have to. The grant application was filed on February 28th, 2 weeks before the deadline, jointly sponsored by Elena Vasquez's Foundation Committee and reviewed by a working group that included, at Elena's request, a parent representative from the district's Title I schools. Nathan Cole was the parent representative. The application was approved in April. 14 schools, 600 new devices, a device-to-student ratio of 1:1. Maya Cole got a new laptop. She immediately covered the case in stickers: a purple horse, a French flag, a small sticker that said "fluently" in block letters. Nathan saw it and didn't ask. Some things you let be what they are. By the time the Meridian Foundation held its next gala, 11 months after the one where Portia Langford had whispered, "Someone let the help attend," the event looked different. Not in the physical sense. Still the grand terrace, still the string quartet, still the crystal flutes. But the guest list had been rebuilt by the Foundation's new director of community engagement, a role that hadn't existed the year before, to include a significant number of donor parents from the district's Title I schools. Portia Langford was still co-chair. She'd worked to keep the role, and she'd worked differently in it, not because she'd had a sudden change of heart, but because she was, above all things, practical. And she'd understood by October that the Foundation's most significant initiative that year had been built by 2 people she'd dismissed at a back table. She did not bring this up in conversation, but she had changed the seating assignments. Table 14 no longer existed near the service corridor. Nathan Cole arrived at the new gala with his name on a place card near the front, at the Technology Initiative table, beside Elena Vasquez. Maya had done his tie again. He had a new jacket, not tailored, still off the rack, but new, and his shoes were polished by his own hand this time, because Maya had decided this year that shoe polishing was beneath her artistic vision. He found his seat. Elena was already there. She looked up. He'd had coffee with her on Thursdays for 11 months. He'd met Sophia, who was 13 now, and who had, after 3 months of severe skepticism, decided Nathan was not as boring as expected. He'd taken them both to a minor league baseball game where Sophia had eaten 4 hot dogs and spent 2 innings explaining, with complete authority, why the infield fly rule was philosophically incoherent. He'd agreed with her. Elena had laughed so hard she'd had to put down her drink. "New jacket," Elena said. Maya approved it. High bar. Extremely high bar. He sat down, looked at the room, the new faces, the Title I parents at the next table. The Foundation's program director chatting with a school principal he recognized from the device rollout. "It's different this year." "It is," Elena said. He looked at her. She was watching the room the same way she'd watched it 11 months ago, cataloging, responsible, caring about it going right. But something was different. The door wasn't just in a breeze anymore. It was open. "Coffee was a good idea," she said. "Last February." "It was," he said. She turned to look at him, raised her glass. He raised his. Outside, the city glittered the way it always did, indifferent to the calculations happening inside it, the tables being reordered, the questions being asked, the small corrections that compound into changed lives. And inside the Meridian Club's grand terrace, at a table near the front where the light was good and the quartet played something unhurried, a single dad and a CEO sat beside each other and said nothing for a moment. Which turned out to be the best kind of something.